Hoodoo Plant Mamas. Get your soul fed and your spirit read.
This here ain't no trend. I possess the power from way back when. Back when folk were stripped from all of their kin, so they had to find the magic within. So I call on my ancestors to gather my herbs. I conjure at my altar. Hoodoo Plant Mamas. I manifest growth and I release trauma.
Child, we just out here trying to water our plants and mind our business, you know? Everybody ain't from the deep south, man. Everybody can't have culture like us.
Hey y'all, and welcome back to another episode of Hoodoo Plant Mamas. I am your co-host, Leah Nicole.
And I'm Danny B.
Today, we are joined by a returning guest. This is her third time on the show. You hear her voice every single time you listen to Hoodoo Plant Mamas. Ghrey, would you like to reintroduce yourself?
Hey, I'm the unofficial third member of Hoodoo Plant Mamas. No, I'm just playing. But yeah, I'm Ghrey. I use all pronouns. I'm an occupational therapist. It's me. I'm back.
Period. We're excited to have you back.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm excited to be back and talk all the things that I'm always rambling about. So thank you for having me.
Well, let's do a check-in and start with Ghrey. How are you feeling today?
I am excited to be here, excited to chit chat. I'm also navigating a little bit of a headache. So kind of feeling under the weather, but I am overall okay.
What about you, Leah?
I'm gonna say same. I'm doing pretty good. I had like a very vivid dream this morning. I don't know, it just kind of put me in a better mood. I'll just say that. How about you, Danny?
I'm doing okay today. I got on my bright colors, this cute little necklace that I got from this
Hey.
artisan shop downtown that's like the sun. And yeah, I'm going to be honest. I made the mistake of consuming some news. So I had like a moment today where I was just like, few tears. And then I just brought it back because you know what? We just got to do what we got to do. So I actually am feeling a lot better now. Drank some water, pulled some cards, and I'm ready to chit chat about also my favorite shenanigans. So yeah, we can get into some gratitude as well. Leah, what are you grateful for today?
I'm gonna say I am grateful for this story that I'm writing. I'm writing another romance novel, and I think it's kind of hard to like write romance after you've gone through a divorce. But I am grateful for this because it is reminding me of like the better parts of like relationships and things like that.
What about you, Gray?
I am grateful for the sun. The sun is shining, the weather is warming up, the people are outside. It's definitely giving me quite a bit of energy. So yes, grateful for the sun.
Same, actually. I'm really grateful that the weather is not as cold anymore. It's still a little breezy. And you know what? I'm not complaining because when you live in the South, that May through August heat is something serious. So I'm just thankful for this very comfy space that we're in.
I am not ready for that like middle of the summer heat yet, so I'll take this.
Today, we wanted to talk about UFOs and the unexplainable. And I know, Gray, you introduced us both to the 1994 Ariel School UFO sighting in, I believe it's Ruwa, Zimbabwe. Would you like to explain that?
Yes. I have talked everybody's ear off about this UFO sighting. So thank you for giving me space to keep getting it off my chest. Based on my little unofficial research and looking at documentaries in September of 1994 at the Ariel School in rural Zimbabwe, there was an alleged UFO and alien sighting where there were a mass number of eyewitness testimonies from children of all ages. This was what I would assume to be like a primary school. So you got children ranging from, I would say, like 4 and up, all the way through like younger adults. And everybody reported that they saw a UFO and they reported that they saw aliens, and they also were all reporting that they received telepathic communication from the aliens. Not only did they report the sighting, they were reporting the exact same experiences during this experience like down to the color of the UFOs, the color of the aliens, the descriptor of the aliens' faces, and how, they received the messages and exactly what the messages were saying. So that's the summary of this UFO sighting in Zimbabwe.
And what's really fascinating is that they still haven't really been able to fully debunk it. People have tried to discredit it. Some people just flat out don't believe it. I think academics and scientists can be really arrogant, and so they've come up with their own theories that still can't be verified. When it comes to the messages they received, I want to read an excerpt from an article that will be in the show notes. And it says a few of the children said it was about something that's going to happen as far as telepathic messages. Let me clarify. When Max said what that something was, the kids returned different answers, but all along the same theme. Pollution, one boy said. I think they want people to know that we're actually making harm on this world, said a girl with blonde pigtails, and we mustn't get too technology. Most chilling was the vision of a third little girl. It was like in the world, all the trees would just go down and there would be no air and people would be dying, she said. I think that in space there's no love, and down here there is, which is interesting. So this was 62 children. 62.
I was going to say, you can't get 62 kids on the same page like that. It is just not, I won't say it's not a thing, but it's not a thing.
No shade to kids, but I've been a kid. We not organized enough. And it's always the haters in the group. One of them kids would have been like, all right, nah, she came out here and told us all to say this, and I don't want to do it anymore because I don't like her. She didn't give me back my pencil or some shit. Like, you just cannot get this many kids to cooperate like that. I want to say that because I want to be transparent. We ain't trying to push no narrative. Like, there has been one allegedly, a person that was allegedly one of the children that said they made it all up with their friend because they wanted to get out of class. That article, it was a Vice article, which,
Mm.
you know, do with that what you will. But he basically said, like, oh, we were just trying to get out of class so we concocted this up. You mean to tell me a child got 60 of his peers to concoct a consistent story of telepathically communicating with aliens about environmental disaster and pollution? I'm not buying it. And I also think that this is probably either somebody that really wasn't there or somebody put him up to it, because they really cannot debunk this, because a lot of them still won't deny it. Even then, there were people that said he's lying. We know what we saw. So
That is interesting. I actually had not heard that there were children reporting that before.
no, it's literally one, and in the article it says his confession could not be independently verified. So to me, this entire article low-key could be discredited, because how are y'all pushing what's supposed to be journalists and you can't independently verify his confession? What does that mean?
Hmm. Yeah,
You know?
it's also very telling because one of the documentaries that I was watching had talked about how traumatic that this was for a lot of the kids. A lot of the kids had to stay home from school for like a number of days. A lot of the kids were terrified. Like, they expressed just being terrified. If you make up a story, you're not going to continue the story of being terrified past about an hour. Like, if you succeeded to get out of your schoolwork, mission accomplished, kind of forgot about the mission now. But this is something that was actually following those children over the course of several days to years, to, like you said, now they're adults now and they're still sharing that this is their truth. This is really what happened to them. This is their experience.
You talked about being terrified. I saw a video that was like a year or so after it happened, and they were like, yeah, we've had nightmares about these things. But even then, I think a lot of them were talking about like, this was scary for us, this was traumatizing, but they felt like they had a mission now. Like, we got work that we need to do.
You're right. There was a quote directly from one of the kids. They said, "We can still prevent it." I think the thing that was terrifying for them was the realization that we are messing up the world. Like, we're messing this up, and it is on us to fix this thing. You shared that like some of the kids had these really vivid visuals of what was going to happen in the world. No air, like imagine feeling like one day I'm going to experience a world where I can't breathe, where the trees are falling. Like, that's terrifying. I don't even really think that they were afraid of the aliens per se, because at one point when they were interviewing those children, I want to say almost all of them said that they would be willing to meet the aliens again. Like, they would be excited. They had follow-up questions. They were curious, and they think that the aliens were also curious. So, yeah, like I think that they were just really impacted by the experience, and I think that some people are taking it as though the kids were fearful of the aliens, but the way that I perceived it, the kids are afraid of the message that the aliens brought to them about how we are treating the earth.
When I was looking up this, there were like people in the comments talking about other places where this happened. And so this happened in Westall School on April 6, 1966, in Melbourne, Victoria, Australia, where a group of kids also saw aircrafts in the sky, but the government came in and they were like, oh, our radars didn't pick up any flying aircrafts. The newspaper said it was a weather balloon, and the landowner where the crafts supposedly came down and like left like circles burnt into the grass, he ended up burning his land because he didn't want anyone looking around for clues. And so, people are like, oh, did it really happen? Who knows? I think the Ariel School is like one of the first times that like we have not only like a whole group of people talking about this, talking about the same story, we also have it documented. And then we also have adults that believe them, right? Because you had to have believed them to continue to interview them and try to get their side of the story. And then I do want to say that around March 19th, 2025, there were videos circulating of aircrafts off the coast of the United States. So I saw one, my algorithm showed me this black couple on Daytona Beach who saw a bright light come out of the ocean. And then there were these smaller circular ones around them. And it was a similar account to the Zimbabwe children who also talked about when they had saw the UFO, there was this big central one and then these smaller ones around them. And so I was like, is this happening? I've heard other people say that there was an account in New York as well, but I didn't find that. But I did find this one, the Daytona Beach one. And it was black people. This is my first time seeing like black people talk about it. So I was like, I believe them.
I'm gonna believe kids and I'm gonna believe black people every time. You were talking about how there were adults that believed the kids too because they continued to interview. And that was something else that stood out to me. Like, even when the teachers, because during the Ariel School UFO sighting, there were no adults on the playground. There was just one, single adult that was, I think, supervising their outside time. The rest of the adults were inside. And so when they interviewed those teachers, the teachers were even saying something happened to these children. Like, when they came back inside, it was so significant that even the teachers believed them immediately, that we don't know what happened. We didn't see it, but something happened to all of these kids. There was a shared experience here and it was undeniable. So that was very telling.
For the adult that was out there with them, did they see anything?
I cannot remember. I don't think that adult saw it. You know what? What I do remember is I think that particular adult that was outside supervising said that there were some children that approached this adult. I don't remember, man, woman, whatever. But this particular adult didn't believe them at first until they were extremely adamant. But by the time that this person went to go check it out, I think they had kind of like missed the opportunity to actually witness it. I believe that's what happened.
So, two things. I'm curious about the government quickly discrediting the children in Melbourne. And this man burning his land because it feels like, did the government make you do this?
It's a
I don't know if they
possibility.
paid you or they bullied you.
It's a
Because
possibility.
maybe the American capitalism in me is coming through, but you could have made money off of this. You could have made money. You could have been like, all right, y'all could come over here and look, but that's gonna be $500. People would have paid you to come over there and explore. But the fact that the government tried to quickly come in and squash it, talking about a weather balloon. Okay. The second thing I want to say about the 2025 video with the black couple is I was in the comments because with videos like this, I want to see what the people saying. And I didn't see anybody actually denying it either or trying to debunk it. But I did see the girl respond to someone or the one of the people that's part of the couple say, yeah, they were trying to get inside our hotel because so and so was saying he could telepathically feel them trying to get him to open the door. And I was like, why is nobody addressing this? Because she, like, he could feel them telling him to open the door. Okay.
Yeah, this is wild.
You know what I mean? I'm one of them people where I'm like, everybody ain't lying.
There's no
Everybody not
way.
lying.
I mean, just like we said, you can't get a group of 62 children on the same page is the exact same as saying you cannot get children, adults from different like regions of America to be on the same page, to be sharing the same exact experience. I don't know. I can't say that I don't believe it. I also, this is reminding me that I had an experience. Granted, I don't know if what I saw was a UFO or aliens, but there was an experience when I was living in Seattle. There was a group of friends, and we were like having this outdoor barbecue on the rooftop, and it had gotten dark, and we had downloaded this stargazing app. We were all like pointing our phones up to the sky, looking at the constellations and everything, having a grand old time. And then there was a moment where we saw like this odd light, and then we saw it kind of disperse into mini lights. And we all stopped at the same time and were like, do you see that? And all of us were in agreement. We see this. And then it trailed, like it kind of, in the same way that birds will like flock into a pattern and move across the sky, the lights kind of like created this pattern and then just like trailed into the sky until it disappeared. And we were all like, so did y'all see that? But we didn't know what else to do with that information. It was just like, we see it. What is that? I don't know. So for me, I'm just like, am I really seeing what I'm seeing? And that takes me back to this whole idea of the government like trying to cover things. One way that is just like this foolproof way of getting people to like cover these things up is to just make people second guess themselves. When I was listening to some of those children talking, they mentioned whenever I shared my truth with the adult in my life, they didn't believe me. And when I heard how that impacted those kids, what the kids reported was, then I started to wonder if I saw was really true. And I'm like, I don't know. I think the government kind of ate when they started making us gaslight ourselves. They did a thing there.
That happens in all facets of like when children are abused and people trying to convince them what they know happened didn't happen. There was another incident that you told me about with, well, maybe JoJo mentioned it,
Oh,
but you actually
yes.
was like not fucking with it at the time because it was that scary. So I'm interested in hearing about that
Yes.
story.
And see, now that we're having this conversation, I'm like, wait, are the aliens trying to contact me? Because this is too many little random moments that I'm like, I forgot that happened. So several years ago, I don't even remember what year it was. It was pre-COVID. I know that my partner at the time and we were driving. It was dark, and it was kind of in the like, it was an up and coming area. So it was still pretty rural, but one of those areas where there's like construction still happening. We're driving down the road, and we both see this like neon like illumination in the sky, and it was no regular like airplane light. It wasn't none of that. It was like, again, what the hell is that in the sky? Do you see that, or am I tripping? Am I making this up? And my partner at the time saw it. And I was spooked. Again, that was back in the day before I started being heavy into conspiracies and really overthinking everything. I was ready to just wrap it up and pack it away and never talk about it again because that was terrifying. And I like, she literally asked me in the moment if I was seeing it, and I was like, yeah, nah, like let's not talk about it. Like let's just let that go and pretend like it never happened. Terrifying. But now, you know what? I think the aliens is trying to chit chat.
I've been saying something going on in Texas. Okay. I don't know if we got any Texas listeners, but I want y'all to know. And if the government listening, y'all up to something over there. From the fact that y'all little light machine, because I'm convinced that y'all actually got a light machine over there, because it be light outside for too long over there. Okay. Every time I would be on FaceTime with y'all, like back in the day, a few years ago, it would be like pitch black in Mississippi. Like it would be like 8 p.m. Why the hell the sun's still out at 8 p.m. in Texas? What's going on here? That's all I'm saying. There's
Uh,
some suspicious happening over there in that state, among other things.
don't get me started because see, now we're gonna exit UFO territory and then enter. I think there are people simulating everything, and this is a, I don't know. I've gone down a rabbit hole about cloud seeding, which is just something that's new to me. So maybe it's not new to the rest of the world, but I recently learned that cloud seeding is a way that like they control or influence the weather. And like it is a legitimate, well-known thing that's happening in the world where they drop, certain chemicals into the clouds and that influences, rain or whatever the case may be. So these things are happening.
This is why I don't understand why people think chemtrails is such a controversial conspiracy, because there's always a little truth in this. And I'm with you. When black people start saying they notice something, I believe them. If people are saying when they come through with these planes and when you see that little line in the sky, that smoke, it seems like all hell breaks loose within the community. It goes into like other conspiracies around like how guns get in the community, because there's conspiracies around that, which we calling it a conspiracy because it can't really be proven and it sounds ridiculous, but like, yeah, who bringing these young teenage black and brown boys, uh military grade guns? How they getting them? Because these are guns that would be locked up in a facility like with some kind of high security. How would they be able to get to those facilities and break in there? Where are they getting it from? Who's bringing them to them? They ain't got the money to pay for them, a lot of them.
Hmm.
So I'm just saying, like, when people have these conspiracies, it's for a reason, because some shit just don't make sense when you really think about it. And y'all want to convince us that people are just inherently bad because of their race or because of how they grew up, when it's really like, no, somebody is pulling the strings.
I hate to make it about neurodivergence all the time, but it just reminds me that like society really has taken on this honestly very toxic habit of masking and ignoring the reality of things. And it has become so normalized for us to ignore the reality of things that whenever these conspiracies come up, the response from the masses is, nah, that can't be true because we ignore the reality of things. That is what we do. We don't question things. We don't ask, we don't follow up on things that don't have this hardcore evidence and proof. And I think that that keeps us in the dark a lot of the times in a way that honestly is just not beneficial to us. Like you're absolutely right. They're conspiracies because we really not doing the work to find if it's the truth or not. And that's quite unfortunate because I do think there's a lot of truth to conspiracies. They talk a lot about movies and different films like being kind of this way that whoever, right, can't always say the government, but whoever's in charge kind of put the truth right there in our face without telling us what the truth is. Now when I go back and I like watch films that I used to watch, I'm like, nah, it's literally right there in our faces. Like you mentioned the chemtrails, there was some cartoon from the 90s where there was just like a little sign about chemtrails just right in the corner. And I was like, wait a minute. Like, are y'all telling us what's really happening right now without telling us? It also makes me think about the series. There's a Hulu series called Paradise. I don't know if y'all have seen or heard of it, but that series is basically telling us that there is a made up world where they are in control of the sun cycles. They are like everything is just a simulation. And the people are kind of just choosing to exist in that world post this really like apocalyptic downfall of the world. Like they created this world knowing that the world was gonna, I don't know, go to shit like the kids were trying to warn us that saw the UFO.
That sounds familiar, don't it, Leah? It sounds incredibly familiar.
Yeah, I wrote a whole story of like that.
Child, get your coins because somebody read that book and get your coins.
I don't know. Maybe we had the same dream about it.
Maybe it's just the truth and y'all are all receiving the message. Listen, because now I'm about to get into my telepathy bag. But maybe telepathically people are receiving these messages and trying to share those messages in whatever way that they can. And I don't know, Leah, maybe you know a little something that we don't know and you decided to put it in a book.
Period.
So, a lot of what you're saying, Gray, is what I want to talk about in the second part of this show. So, let's take a break real quick and then we'll get to that.
Let's get into some ways you can support the Hoodoo Plant Mamas. One is through our bookshop where you can buy the books that we previously discussed with our Writing the Spirit guests. We also have a Hoodoo Beginner's Guide as well as our top reading picks. We also have our top tarot cards and oracle card deck section, so check that out too. You can also buy Leah's books on Bookshop. Every purchase you make helps support our show. Check us out at bookshop.org/shop/Hoodoo Plant Mamas or hit the link in our show notes. Other ways you can support us include rating and reviewing the podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Follow us on Instagram at Hoodoo Plant Mamas. We are no longer on the app formerly known as Twitter. So, yeah.
You can also check out our Patreon where we share exclusive video, plant, and spiritual content for only $3 a month. If you prefer a one-time donation, you can donate via Cash App, #Hoodoo Plant Mamas, or our PayPal, hoodooplantmamas@gmail.com. Let's get back to the show. Before the break, we were talking about conspiracy theories. And I think when you talk about conspiracy theories, there's always this level of secrecy involved because a lot of our education is about discrediting anything that isn't of the material world, like you were saying earlier, Gray, which I always think is interesting in the United States because, like, here, a sky daddy and his wizard son born of a virgin, 100% real. Everything else is fake and make believe. And often, I think it can be really hard to talk about these things because when people see you engaging with the conspiracy theory, they start discrediting anything you've ever said or done because now you're engaging in bunk science. This belief is what fueled a lot of my novelette antenna and the short story. For me, it's becoming more and more real every day because when I was writing that, I was writing about conspiracy, paranoia, and truth. And because Moniece was experiencing a different life because she's neurodivergent, she's disabled, she was quote unquote insane. But then you have to start thinking about what our country thinks is sanity. And they're like, oh, people suffering because they don't have enough money to eat. That's perfectly sane and reasonable. Killing people because of the color of their skin, that makes a lot of sense, right? Spending 80% of our lives working, doing meaningless work to get permission to do things that our ancient ancestors could just do, like make their own food, build their own shelter, fish and hunt. You have to get a license to fish and hunt. Like, the entire way that our society is structured is insane. And so, from my point of view, I'm like, why is it so hard to believe in aliens, in mermaids, in dolphin communication? Like, why am I the crazy one for believing in this? I did like your idea that maybe we're all tapping into the same sort of downloads, because when I'm thinking about aliens communicating telepathically, this was before I even heard of the children in Zimbabwe who said that aliens were communicating with them telepathically. I have read about this in intent. Well, actually, it came to me because I got really high. And I was thinking about aliens who were communicating telepathically when I was really high. And so I wrote about that in Antenna in early 2023. And then a few months later, I read the same thing in The Sound of Stars by Alicia Dow. And then a lot of what I wrote about Antenna popped back up when you introduced me to the telepathy tapes in late 2024. And then they had an episode in that series which reminded me about The Kindred by Alicia Dow, which I think Alicia Dow is onto something. But I'm like, maybe we're all tapping into the same sort of things. And so we're all sharing a similar message.
I have to agree. Like I have so many thoughts about everything. But what I'll start by saying is that the people in power, the people that are benefiting from the way that our society currently exists, seem to continue to reinforce the things that we, again, have normalized, the way that we don't believe certain things if we don't see it, or if we're not used to seeing it. Because sometimes we see some things and then we will convince ourselves that we didn't see that thing simply because of the ways that we have been molded to respond to those types of experiences. And I'm so glad that you brought up religion, because as you were talking, I was kind of like going back in my own experience and remembering the ways that my mom and my maternal grandmother would always say when it was time for me to go to college, the one thing that they made sure to tell me over and over was don't go there reading and like trying to learn things outside of what you're going to school for. You're going to school to get your education. You are not going to school to learn things outside of your religion. You know, you are not going there to learn anything outside of what you have been taught and how you've been raised. And so now when I like reflect back to growing up, it was just this very rigid belief system that was ingrained in me. And the hope and the goal was that I maintain that rigid belief system. And anything that veered away from that or that differed from that, my response was supposed to be to immediately discredit it, to ignore it, and invalidate it, instead of looking at it with a lens of curiosity, which is what we saw those Zimbabwean like children, or the children that were in Zimbabwe, they were looking at it from a viewpoint of curiosity. They had an experience and they were like, this is what I saw. I want to see the aliens again. Like I have questions. I'm sure they have questions for me too. We want to know, like how do we connect? What can we learn from each other? But the people in power have really ingrained in us that like it's not okay for us to be curious about the things that we've not been told.
And even like if you are curious, then you start questioning your sanity. And it's always the fear of like, if I reveal too much about what I've seen or experienced, they're going to disappear me. Like they're going to lock me up.
Yeah, I mean, that's why our current power structure is trying to eliminate anything related to education, defunding the library. Like, some of it is like, I keep trying to figure out, like, how do y'all think this makes sense? Like, why is this considered wasteful? Anything that's meant to educate and support people. And it's funny because, like, parents will talk about kids getting indoctrinated, but the problem is, they don't care about kids getting indoctrinated. They just don't want anybody else to do it. They want to be the ones to indoctrinate. And it's fascinating because if God, this is a spiritual podcast, so it's not even a matter of not believing in God or deities and that kind of thing. But if your religion, if it's so real, if you're so convicted by it, why are you trying so hard to like force everybody else to believe that? Like, why is a part of your agenda to just force all of us to submit or conform to this? If it's supposed to be about free will, if you're, it's so, it boggles my mind. And I also just kind of like what you mentioned, Leah, like, I actually don't think these people believe this stuff. I don't know what they believe. Because if I really, when I was a kid, and probably the same thing for you, Gray, I was scared. I was scared of going to hell. I did not want to be a bad person, actually. And anytime I did something, even as small as telling a lie, I felt horrible. So that's how I know these people aren't really convicted by their religion. Like, you really don't believe it, because those of us, even those of us that have been delivered from that indoctrination, I can honestly say that religion has had a big part to do with my, like, the core of my, like, moral values. Even to this day. Even to this day, I can't pretend like that hasn't impacted it. So,
I agree. I do agree. I This is also making me think about, now I'm thinking about the telepathy tapes. I don't know how much the rest of the world knows about the telepathy tapes, but just quick summary, the telepathy tapes was a podcast, or is a podcast, that kind of is shining a light on autistic abilities to communicate telepathically. And there was a part of that podcast which one of the autistic kids, I think it was a kid, if I'm remembering correctly, mentioned that we're kind of, and this is my own summary of what they said, but we're kind of just like making a lot of distractions in our conversations around like religion and God. And we're having a lot of conversations that are very divisive when we're all kind of talking about the same higher power. And it's not beneficial for us to like live in a communal way, to live in a way that is in harmony with our each other as humans, and also in harmony with the world, the earth around us. And I just think that the people that are in positions of control have a hand in that intentionally, because it creates, again, it divides us, it puts us in places where we're, whenever we have what appears to be misalignment in our morals and our values, it just keeps us divided and disconnected in a way that I think, had we not had the level of influence from people in power, people with money, if we're going to be quite honest, maybe we would all be a little bit more connected, whether it would be telepathically, whether it would be connection to the earth, whether it would be connection to aliens, all of the above. Like, I think that those things are possible. Like you said, Leah, like there may be some truth to, maybe we're receiving the same downloads, but there's a lot of things that are happening in the world that kind of keep us from leaning into those things and actually understanding what those things are, which I just, it's quite unfortunate, if I must say.
Something else I really liked about the telepathy tapes was kind of how it expanded beyond just telepathy with autistic people and their caregivers to like, there were people who were like, oh, I can tune in, talk to people who are dead. I can also talk to animals and things like that. And it really reminded me of like when I used to be with my ex-husband and our cat. I was with her every single day for like 5 years. And I would notice certain things that she would do, and I would tell him, "Oh, she likes this, she doesn't like that." Da, da. And he was like, "How would you know?" I'm like, "Because I'm with her all the time. She's constantly communicating with me. She doesn't say, 'Hey, I like this,' but like her body language would change, like, or she's very vocal, so she would just start meowing or things like that to show that she liked or didn't like something. So it was like you can non-verbally communicate with people and with animals, like that is a type of communication. But I think oftentimes, because we live in this society that views like language as the most important, view like nonverbal people as not people, that kind of also translates to animals. If they can't communicate with you in the same way, they're not as intelligent as you are. And something I thought was really interesting was a few years ago when the orcas were attacking the yachts. I was looking it up for the show, and it said that since 2020, a group of juvenile orcas, also known as Iberian killer whales, have rammed into boats near the Iberian Peninsula at least 673 times. The attacks have primarily targeted medium sized sailboats under 12 meters long, focusing on their spade rudders. This behavior has caused at least 7 vessels to sink. And Robert Powell, who was a British yachtsman whose yacht went down, said that these orcas were not playing, and he described the attack as well organized and coordinated in a social media post. And I was like, no, because they know what's going on. They know what's happening to this planet, and they're tired of it too. And they are taking action. But like, whenever I say that, people think that I'm crazy, but I'm like, no, they know what's going on. They are on this planet too, and they are fighting back.
They know what's going on. Okay. I watched Our Oceans. I don't know if y'all know about Our Oceans on Netflix. Obama, I believe, produced and narrated Our Oceans. And I was thinking the same thing. If you watch and you just kind of observe the way that the animals in the ocean are existing, they are accomplishing the same things that we're accomplishing in a world where we prioritize verbal communication. I don't know when we got to the point where we said English spoken language is superior, but there are so many forms of communication happening and so many forms of life that are achieving so many things without the level of spoken communication that we have. You're right. They know what's going on.
To get to the thing about orcas and like animals communicating, one thing I'm starting to be convinced of is that environmental disaster is going to precede human led revolution, particularly in the United States, because we're too, like, a lot of people are just too brainwashed. And I think it's starting with the animals, like the fact that there are certain ocean animals that have never been seen that are coming to the top because of environmental shit. I really feel like the animals and like non-human, specifically non-human animals, are really going to be the thing that like pushes things over the edge, because we are destroying their habitats and stuff and their ability to be alive. And that might be the thing that forces us to all have to work together against the rich and put aside our hate. Now, of course, there'll be a few that have to get Harriet Tubman. There are going to be a few that can't come because they are just too committed to being hateful and nasty. But then there are going to be the ones that genuinely want to stay alive, and they know they need the people who have struggled the most in this country, or they're going to die, because we know how to survive. But yeah, I'm not the first person to say this. People are always saying this. The earth will heal. It will purge us if it needs to and recalibrate. And so when I think about those kids talking about the trees falling and there being no air, I think that is the earth shutting down, getting rid of us, and then it's going to come right back. It's going to come right back. And maybe a different iteration of humanity will come. But off of that tangent, I also want to address the communication thing, because that's so true. And it this idea that verbal communication is superior does connect to the way people see animals, and sort of this lack of value people put in animals. People really don't see animals. They don't see trees. Trees also communicate. This is a scientific, like, it's been proven by scientists that trees communicate, and they communicate with each other. But people don't see these things as living beings, although trees, for one, are the reason we're alive. I don't understand why anybody would be okay with trees being chopped down. But when you truly don't believe that we're all in an ecosystem, you really believe Trump gonna be the one to keep us alive, or you're some politician, Democrat, Republican, whatever, none of them people can keep us alive. The earth has to. This is the thing at its core that we have to take care of, the animals. When animals start going extinct, especially in 2025, like, niggas need to be scared. Although I'm convinced a lot of them not. They just hiding.
Child, I just know them trees be looking at us like, just y'all wait, because we about to turn the oxygen off in about 10, 15 years, okay? Like, yeah, I don't know. I'm concerned though, because I feel like technological advances, it's getting to a scary point for me. I'm kind of like in a place where I'm super connected, with the internet and with technology, but because of the time period that I was born and raised in, I still have some level of attachment to the world before this big like advance in our internet access and things like that. And so I'm realizing that like there are a large number of people that actually don't know how to exist without the internet, without technology. And it reminds me of the statement, one of the quotes that you read, Danny. The kids were saying, like, we are abusing technology in a way that's going to be extremely destructive to our world. And I've like been trying to make sense of that statement, right? Like, what does technology have to do with the way that we're treating the world? But I'm also like realizing that technology is taking us away from our connection to the world around us, and therefore we aren't even able to feed the world around us and allow the world around us to feed us, because we just don't have any attachment or connection to it. Like we're getting to a point where, man, we I feel like Danny, you and I were having this conversation recently where it was just like kids don't even know how to play outside anymore. Like something as simple as a child knowing what to do when they're outside in nature is something that is not really in existence in the way that it used to be. Kids don't know how to hang out on a tree stump. Kids don't know how to go make a mud pie. Like there's just this level of disconnection to nature that is very concerning with technological advances. It's making me want to get a flip phone and turn my internet off.
It's also like polluting the planet, it's killing people. Like the fact that there's all these videos coming out of the Congo of these people having to pull each other out of these like holes that are literally, it's almost like a landslide as they're mining for materials. And sometimes shit happens where everything will start sliding and they have to get people out of there. And sometimes it's people stuck in there. So as it's coming down, I literally saw a video as it was coming down. They were literally pulling workers out of the landslide, children as well, grown men, little boys that don't even look like they weigh 90 pounds. They ain't got no business out there. No human does. But y'all got babies out there. And us in the Western world, a lot of people, they don't give a damn. They don't give a damn. It's all about luxury and I deserve this. And I feel like it keeps coming up in stuff I'm reading, like this whole self-care shit and wrapping it up in capitalism. Do you deserve nice things, or do you deserve to live a safe life, equitable life where you have everything you need? I don't know. I guess I'm trying to work on my language around that. You deserve to feel good. Let me say that we all deserve to feel good. Do you deserve nice things? Well, what's nice things? What's nice things, beloved? The diamond ring? Like these are meaningless things, especially when it's happening off the backs of other human beings that you have been programmed to believe are not as worthy of life as you. Or you've been convinced that like, well, they're over there, so I don't gotta think about it. The kids over there being bombed, they hospitals and shit, that's not us yet. Because right now a lot of people not fucking with the United States, and a lot of and I think people think like, well, we gonna be okay. They want to be us. We the Beyonce of the world. We're not. We're not.
Heavy on the yet.
Y'all not concerned that all of Europe is banding together against us? We here because of Europe. They started this shit. They the David Ruffman. What you talking about?
I think something else that people forget is like the US has the largest military in the world. And I think a lot of people are like, oh, if something bad happens here, somebody's going to come and save us. It's like nobody's going to fight the US military to save us. Like we are by ourselves.
Yeah.
We may have the largest, but child,
For now, you pissing off everybody. We can't take the whole world. We simply can't. With the stuff that I've been reading in the news and the fact that I was in tears earlier, y'all either come get me or let me be.
nah. But all of this is honestly making me think of like, what is it that we can do, given that there have been some like very clear messages, whether it's be from the aliens or from our ancestors or the earth or whatever, telling us that like destruction is on the horizon, babes. What you gonna do? Like, it makes me wonder, like, what is it that I can do to be intentional with the way that I'm connecting with all forms of life around me, with the people that are in my life, with the animals that are in my life, with the earth that is near me. Like, how can I be really, really intentional so that I can, I don't know, do my part? Because the kids kind of ate when they said, we have work to do. We do. It's not just the kids. Like, shout out to the kids being in a place where the veil really is thin and they can receive those messages and believe what they're being told. But us as adults, like, we're also in a position where, you know, maybe we can be intentional to try to get that connection back that the kids do have, because we can if we really work to do it. But we gotta do something that is something that feels a little bit different from what the rest of society is doing, so that we can actually, I don't know, make some type of meaningful change and strides to really love on the earth in the same way that the earth has really been. Honestly, this is a toxic relationship that we have with the earth, and the earth has given us far too many chances. We need to do better.
Yeah, we're gonna have to get offline. Um, y'all could just be mad. Y'all gonna have to put the phones down and talk to each other.
I agree, honestly, with both of y'all. I have been trying to get more offline, deleting my social media accounts, because I do think that, like, I don't want to say technology will be the end of us, but it is very destructive, not just to the earth, but to our relationships with each other. And so, yeah, when I think about the message that the kids have, especially in terms of like, we need to get it together, or we're not going to be here for very much longer. Yeah, that's basically it. We got to get together.
I mean, same. Disconnecting from the internet is hard, honey, but it's given addiction, and I need to be intentional with the way that with the relationship that I have with the internet. I think one of the ways that really feels like is just extremely fulfilling, especially for someone who like thrives on connection. For me, it's been feeling really good to just have these really in-person connections and using the internet for connection, kind of like this, like having opportunities to have conversations like this when I am engaging with technology and the internet, and when I'm not, like finding ways to really connect in person. And I don't know, I want to go back to the old days, like where I am maybe sitting on a tree stump playing hide and seek with my friends. Like, more of that, and more joy, because I also don't want to enter a space where I'm so anxious about the potential destruction that's on the horizon, where I'm not allowing myself to just exist. I think like that's what I want more people to do, is like, yo, let's just exist again. Like, let's exist out there in the real world again. We don't have to exist on the internet. Even if we're not doing all this major, let's repair the trees and heal the go outside and exist, talk to people, and enjoy and eat and commune and all the things, because those are things that a lot of us, especially from the South, we grew up doing that, having Sunday dinners, like having meals together, laughing, cackling. More of that, please. That is all I want.
Amen. That's what we're gonna have to do, and that's what we'll eventually be forced to do. I'm trying to keep the faith. I'm trying to keep the faith because I'm convinced that a part of our undoing is going to be moving backwards and reclaiming or rediscovering new ways of being alive that are not so attached to technology. Because eventually, like, this technology movement is almost trying to phase humanity out. It's almost trying to phase us out. You're taking people's stories for the AI training. You like it's just kind of like, well, what is our purpose at that point when you're taking everything and putting it into technology and trying to reproduce it that way? So yeah, I pray we all find our way back to the ways of our ancient ancestors. I'm glad you mentioned that, Leah. I really do pray that we do that. And yeah, that's it for today. If you like this episode, you can like, rate, and review Hoodoo Plant Mamas on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. If anything from the show resonated with you, make sure to share it with us on social media. You can find us on Instagram at Hoodoo Plant Mamas. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Peace out.